Oh my goodness. It is the first episode of Heels and Hallelujahs of the new year. So therefore, it only seems fitting to say, why, hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Heels and Hallelujahs podcast. My name is AllannaCuellar, the host and founder of this podcast, and I am so glad and honored that you are here listening today here on the Heels and Hallelujahs podcast. This is a faith-based podcast where I talk about growth, developing, and growing closer to God first and foremost. We talk about fashion, social media, business, and just self-improvement and self-development and growth and just continuing to grow closer to God each and every day. I'm here to hopefully be that big spiritual sister that I wish I had when I was new to my faith, and just share things that I've learned throughout life to hopefully help you develop in your life skills and talents that you have. I absolutely love sharing what I've learned, and as I've discovered recently over especially the past week, I've had several women reach out to me asking about coaching and skills and just asking for tips from me. So that's exactly why going into this year on this podcast, I really do want to incorporate a lot more of things that I've learned, practical steps to achieve things that you want to work towards and goals that you have, which is why obviously it's the new year and everybody is probably talking about goals and achievements that they want to have. I don't even want to call it New Year's resolutions. I don't like the idea of a New Year's resolution because in my mind, I'm making that a goal because we're going to actually achieve these things. We're actually going to make these things happen. So I've got a couple little notes here on my laptop, not too many. This is just going to be a very fun chit chat type of episode. This episode, we are going to be talking about a lot. Honestly, I'm going to get pretty vulnerable with you guys. So I'm definitely going to be sharing a lot more than I've ever shared before. So I'm excited. I have nothing to hide. I have nothing to be ashamed of because I'm human. I'm not perfect. That's the whole point of this podcast, is to share all the ups and the downs, the struggles, and how I've walked through them and how the Lord's been, my guide through all of it. So I'm going to share quite a lot in today's episode. We're also going to reflect on 2024. Because it was quite the year. We're also going to talk about goals for 2025. I'm going to share some of mine, and then I'm also going to share with you practical things to do and to set in place to actually achieve your goals and healthy habits to build on the daily basis to get you there. So first off, we're in the second week of 2025. It is currently... Actually, good question. Today is January 9th when I'm filming this. Hopefully this episode is out on the 10th. That's my plan. But we're in the second week of 2025 already. And just yesterday evening, I got back from a leadership conference in Dallas with my church because I do work part-time on with my church. I do my church's social media. So that's one of the many things that I do. And being that this was a leadership conference, it was the perfect way to start off the year. I learned so much, took so many notes, and it really helped me refine how I'm approaching my goals for this year, along with a book that I'm reading, but I'll get into that later, which is why I want to share a lot of those things with you. So yeah, I just got back from that. I was there the past 3 days, and oh my goodness, it was absolutely freezing. It was so cold, and it's currently snowing there where the conference was at right now. It was up in the Dallas area, so it's snowing there right now. Thankfully, it's not snowing here. But reflecting on 2024, oh my goodness, where do I start? First off, 2024 was a roller coaster of a year. There was so many ups and downs, and I will say without a doubt, so many uncertainties and things that I just didn't know, and a lot of new things that I had never walked through before that I had to learn. So I would say starting off of 2024, I was a fresh college graduate. I had just graduated college the December before, got my degree in business administration and marketing. And I started off with my first full-time job position as the director of social media and events for a Christian organization. I was there for a little bit, And I was like so excited because this was the most I had ever been paid for before. And I thought I was on the right track because I was like, yeah, I'm going straight into the workforce, have a 9 to 5. It was partially remote, partially in person. So it was a hybrid job. Things were going good until I quickly realized that I don't think this job is necessarily for me. And I felt really bad at first because I was only there for about 2 months. Until I discovered a new job position that had been posted. And I was like, truthfully, I'm looking for a bit of a higher pay in the role because the driving that I was having to do, I was having to drive quite far. And just thinking long term in my growth and where I wanted to be, the job position that I was at the beginning of the year, my first position, didn't allow opportunities for me to grow. I was at the top, and it was within a smaller organization. So being at the top isn't always bad, but I'm so young, for one, and two, it is a smaller organization, and so I still have so much to learn and so much to grow to where I'm like, okay, well, I need someone ahead of me or above me who knows more, so where I can continue to grow. Or just even have a job opportunity where I can grow and expand or climb the ladder, so to say. That was my mindset at first. And then I came across another position at another company. It was fully remote. It was with a digital media agency doing project management and production management. So even though I had just accepted this one position with this one company, I was like, you know what? I'm going to apply for this job and just see what happens. If I get it, cool. If I don't, at least I know I tried. And I was just heavily praying on it too at the time. And so I applied, sent in my resume, got a call for an interview, got a call for a second interview, and ended up getting offered the job. So this position, of course, offered more than my current job that I was at. And so I put in my 2 weeks at the first job that I was at and then took on this one. And I was like, okay, great. This is fully remote, which is exactly what I'm looking for. I don't have to go into the office because I'm not one to go for the corporate desk job type of job because I've been there, done that. Just not my preference. So I went and did that. However, that job, I learned quite a lot. Even though it was a remote position, I was still required to be in person for production shoots that we would do for the company's different clients. So basically what I was doing is I was a social media manager for 11 different clients. Therefore, I was doing this for 11 different companies at once, and also expected to not only, schedule their content, run analytics for the content, come up with all the content each month, but I was also expected to drive to wherever this location was, be the production manager, basically be the producer of the content, make sure, the videographer knows what he's doing, make sure that the content, within a quick turnaround time is sent to the editors, making sure I'm having meetings with the clients, just doing all of that and driving back and forth for 11 different companies. So I was managing all their social media platforms. That would include Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, if they had a LinkedIn, just doing all of that. So think of 5 different platforms for 11 different clients, while also still having to make edits myself to content, write out captions, sit there and research hashtags. But also if one of my clients ended up being, a law firm, I was expected to be an expert in, that industry, to know what type of content to come up with and things that can be shared legally, what can't be shared legally within different industries, all while being someone who studied business. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a doctor. Some of the clients that I managed were doctors or medical hospitals. And so it was very overwhelming very quickly, and it quickly started to bleed into my personal life. There was no work-life balance and separation, and I'm a type of individual to where if I say yes to something, I let my yes be yes and my no be a no. And so if I commit to something, I am 100% going to stay committed to it. And so that looked like, for me, that included being involved in serving on Sundays. So on Sundays, my mindset is, okay, that's my rest, my Sabbath. I'm here at church. I was leading 2 teams at church, my social media team and the live hosting team. And then also on Monday nights, I lead and serve with the young adults ministry of my church. So Monday nights, as soon as the clock hit 5 o'clock, because I would work 9 to 5. I'm like, all right, I'm going straight to church, gonna go help set up. I'm going to switch into, spiritual mindset of like, all right, Lord, I'm here to lead, here to serve, everyone else who is here. But there would be so many times where I would be receiving messages late at night, expecting to respond to them for work. And so I was like, just started praying on that. I'm like, Lord, this job just isn't allowing work-life separation. I was being highly stressed out. Just my spiritual side of my life too just was lacking. I wasn't having enough time to just be in my word and daily, because I felt like I'd have to wake up so early, be in a rush, and automatically be kind of like ahead of the game and on the clock at like 7 a.m. when in reality I only should have started working at 9 a.m. But like I said, the boss was expecting more and more, and I'm like, well, there's only one way I can accomplish all of these things and balance all of it other than just working, starting work earlier in the day and working later into the evenings. And it just got to a point to where it was not sustainable, and I'm like, I don't live my life to work. I'm sorry, I just don't. Some people might, but that is not me. And so out of the blue, unexpectedly, I ended up getting let go. It was a huge blessing in disguise. I have no shame sharing that, because one, I was praying about it. I was like, Lord, what do? I need this job because financially, I needed it, but it is extremely stressing me out big time. And my spiritual, time with the Lord was just going down. I'm like, Lord, this just isn't it. And so, it was a blessing in disguise. So I was like, all right, now I can't, I got let go, but I'm like, okay, I can't just sit around and do nothing. What do I do now? So in that time, I was heavily in prayer about it, and the Lord was like, well, start a podcast. And I was like, okay. After praying on it, and also after God using several people in my life to speak to me and make it so clear that I was being told things like, oh, you don't know the influence that you have, and how good it is for women who see you in the church, or you have a gift of speaking. All of these things that were just kind of confirming that the Lord wanted me to start a podcast. I was like, all right, Lord, I hear you loud and clear. We're going to start this podcast. Lo and behold, here we are. That's what this is. But I was like, okay, Lord, this is great, but I kind of need something that's going to pay the bills. A podcast isn't going to do that. Sure, it might one day, Lord willing, but, that's not going to do that right now, and that's not the reason I'm starting this podcast. I was like, but okay, I'll be obedient, but what am I going to do in the meantime? So I was like, well, I've always said I want to just dive into content creating full time, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I did that. And anyone who knows or has taken a go at content creating knows that it's not like working a traditional 9 to 5. You don't get a set guaranteed amount, like paycheck every 2 weeks, to where it makes it easy for you to plan your finances. No, content creating is not like that. So a lot of times you'll get sponsorships, or you can make an income through affiliate marketing, commission through links. Some influencers or content creators have an Amazon storefront, use different other, third-party apps to kind of, expand their sources of income. So there's all those things, right? But all those things are very, very time consuming. So after a couple months of doing that, I was like, okay, this is, it's going, but I was still just stressed because I'm like, okay, at the same time, this isn't going, I was kind of just walking at a steady pace, but I needed it to start growing and scaling in order to get to where I wanted to be in life. Because I'm like, all right, I'm trying to afford to live on my own and do all these things. I'm like, I just started freaking out. And come summertime, I ended up traveling a lot. So in June, I ended up going to Dallas for a Christian conference. Then in July, I went on a mission trip to Costa Rica, which was my 3rd mission trip. It was with my church, which that was beautiful. I absolutely love going on mission trips, and I highly, highly, highly recommend going on one to just go serve the kingdom and expand the kingdom. If you ever get the opportunity to do so, please, please, please just do it. One, it's a life-changing experience, and two, you learn so much, and three, it opens your eyes in so many ways. Four, they're highly humbling. I will say that. But it did that, and then, the very next month in August, I went on a trip to Hawaii with my family, because part of my family lives there. And then, summertime kind of is coming to a close. I'm like freaking out because I'm like, what do I do? Like, financially, I need to figure something out here. Like, yeah, summer was great and I traveled, but I had to be honest with you and say, like, yeah, although I'm posting, the fun things I'm doing on social media, I was still sharing my traveling and all of that. But on the inside and behind the scenes, I'm still here like, okay, well, this is great. I'm sharing the content because I still need to stay consistent with it in order to maintain, sponsorships that I have, or in order to continue to have a consistent output of my content into the algorithm on the different platforms that I was using. I was like, okay, but still I'm kind of needing to be making more here. So at that point, I just started applying to jobs left and right. I was like, all right, well, time for me to update my resume. We're going to go with this. So I did that, and I got to a point where I lost track of the number of jobs that I was applying to, and I was really struggling with that as well. And I know that I was not the only one, because I think at the time, and probably now still, the job market is just very, very hard, and it's rough out there, because after discussing with a lot of my friends, a lot of them were struggling to find jobs too. They're nonstop applying to jobs. And so I knew I wasn't the only one dealing with that. And so I was like, oh my goodness, this is like a full-time job, just applying to jobs. And I was over here not hearing anything back, and to the point I had a list on my phone of all the different ones that I had applied to. And at one point I'm like, I don't even know what I've applied to anymore. After like, what was it, maybe close to 50-ish jobs that I had applied to, I was like, all right, this makes no sense. I'm over here, I'm a college graduate, I have a degree, I have years and years worth of experience applying to the jobs in this field that I'm applying for. I've, done social media for like 10 years. Why am I not hearing anything back? Out of all of those jobs that I applied to, and meanwhile, get this, still freaking out on the inside of what I'm gonna do financially, I heard back only from 3 companies, and those were 3 no's that I got back. So yeah, you can only imagine how I'm a very resilient person, where I'm like, all right, I just got to keep going. But it was very, very frustrating, and I was freaking out. And the Lord really, really, really was just calling for me to trust in him financially. And I will just tell you, the Lord never fails. I was over here being like, Lord, please, I need the money now. But I will tell you, the Lord is never early. He's never late. He's always perfectly on time. A lot of times we would like for his timing to come sooner than it does, but he's always perfectly on time, because after being in so much prayer and after learning a lot from the application process to the endless jobs I applied to, I was like, you know what? Forget this. Why would I want to go work for someone else full-time in their company, in their social media agency, and be capped at what I can make and be stressed out when I can just do this myself? I, was at an agency for a couple months myself. I learned a lot in that meantime. I learned a lot of what to do, what not to do. I learned how not to talk to your employees, because I won't go into that, but I'll just say I learned that because my experience was not necessarily the best. I'm not here to throw anyone under the bus, so I'm not going to go into that. But yeah, I learned a lot. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to start my own. I'm going to do social media management on my own. I'm going to do this for businesses. I've done social media for years. I know how to edit. I know how to do all the things, copyright, hashtag research, what's trending, and all of those things. I'm like, why not just do this myself? And so I'm like, okay, Lord, I would love to do this, but I kind of really, really, really need you to provide right now, because clearly all the things that I'm trying is not working. There was no doors being opened. And so lo and behold, I get a phone call one day from one of my friends who's a business owner. She's like, hey, and I had worked with her before in managing her social media for her business for a year prior. And she was like, hey, I kind of need social media management again for my business. Would you be willing? And I was like, yes, of course. So that was client number 1. Then shortly after, she had a friend whom she had shared about my services. She had shared things, that I was doing with my social media management, gave her good feedback. And this lady was also a business owner too. I ended up getting a random phone call one day too, just being like, hey, so-and-so recommended you to me. I live in a whole nother state, but they said you do really good with social media management. Would you be willing to do it for my business? What does that look like? Then after having meetings, a whole, review process, I ended up signing her as client number 2. Then I had another woman one day approach me at church and say that she wanted social media management for, her company that she had. And I was like, wow, Lord, you are amazing. You're just supplying all of these clients right now, and not just any clients. You're providing my ideal clients, both whom are women and are strong in their faith. And I'm like, wow, this is just beautiful. And that in itself was something that I never would have expected to happen, because like I mentioned before, I was able to learn what kind of clients I preferred working with in having my job at a digital media agency, and which clients that I wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of working with. In any job you have the areas that you like and the areas that you don't like. So I learned that, and I'm like, wow, Lord, you are just so good. You are supplying my ideal client left and right. And then next thing you know, after I have these clients going, word is getting around that this is what I'm doing. And then next thing you know, all in the meanwhile, like I mentioned earlier, I was just serving in leading the social media team at my church, but I was never paid for it. It wasn't on staff or anything. But then one day the pastor's like, hey, I would love for you to do this part-time for our church too. I was like, I would love to do so. So now I'm also and currently still part-time staff at my church doing social media. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. And all of that to say that 2024, God really had me trust in him a lot financially. I was freaking out, but he provided within the due time. The perfect timing. Was it the timing that I would have liked? No, because I would not have liked to have sit there and freaked out for a bit. But hey, now I can trust in the Lord and know that he absolutely will provide. And there's a refinement that came from that. So I'm so thankful for that in itself. But that's kind of where 2024 took me. Did I grow on social media too? Yes, absolutely. But I look back and I don't have any necessarily like hard set number goals that I had set at the beginning of 2024 to where I could look back and say, oh, did I achieve XYZ goals I set at the beginning of 2024? No. And that's something that I learned that I didn't do in 2024, which I'm absolutely doing now for 2025, which is a really good pivot point for me to now switch to talking about 2025. So I do want to share kind of what a life currently looks like. So right now, like I mentioned, am part-time staff with my church, which is why I just came back from that church conference with them for the past 3 days, which was a beautiful experience within itself. I am also still full-time content creating. On my personal page, I have this podcast here, which I hope to scale, and doing social media management and serving a lot at my church, involved in young adults ministry. And yeah, that's kind of what life is right now, and I'm so thankful for it. However, I do have really big goals for 2025 because I'm like, you know what, we're gonna shoot big here. That's what we're doing. We're shooting big for 2025 because I'm changing a lot of the mindsets that I used to have before. I've learned a lot. 2024 taught me so much. So I'm going to pull out my phone here and share some of the goals that I have for 2025. And before I get into that, I want to tell you, if you're listening to this and you have some sort of goals for 2025, sit down and write them down. Write out your goals, because it's one thing to just sit there and tell yourself, oh, I want to achieve this by the end of 2025. But if you don't have something written in paper or written in front of you that you are going to see day in or day out, chances and likelihood that you are actually going to stick to that goal and actually work towards achieving it by the end of the year are very slim. People tend to, like, a couple weeks into the new year, already fail at their goals. So don't be that person to do that. Be the person who's going to see their goals every single day, every week, every month, and is going to be resilient and push through and work to achieve those. Let's do that together, okay? So let me go ahead to my notes here. I don't know that you can even see this if you're watching on YouTube. I have a list of goals, and that is my first tip that I have to go along with not just writing your goals, but get really specific with your goals. If there's a number that you can attach to a goal, write out that number. If there is a deadline you can put to that goal, write the deadline, because you need to get so specific with this so that way you can see the goals tangibly. What that does is that also puts into perspective and brings the reality to you of just how far away from your goals you really are. So set that goal and work backwards. So if you have a goal of, say, making 10 grand a month, then you can tell yourself, okay, well, I'm currently making X amount a month. This is how far I am from that goal. Now, here's the practical steps that I need to do to achieve that goal. So get as specific as you can with all of it. So, and I also break down your goals to the different areas of your life. That be personal goals, health goals, business goals, work-life goals, friendship goals, relationship goals. Break them down into different categories of your life. That's exactly what I did here. I have them on my phone because my phone is the one thing that I, without a doubt, have with me every single day. It's usually on me at most times. So I have some personal goals that I wrote here. I'm not going to share every single thing with you because I'm going to keep some things private to myself. But a personal goal that I have is reading one book a month. Now, I've never, ever been a big book reader, but I definitely see the value to reading educational books. And I want to specify that my goal is not just any book. I want them to be either spiritual development and growth or, practical spiritual, I want them to be either spiritual development books, business growth and development books, or just anything that's going to keep me in a growth mindset, because I'm no longer in college. So not like I'm continuously taking classes where I'm learning, so to say. I'm already creating a life for myself. And so one could, get very comfortable in a mindset and get stuck in a certain way of thinking. So I want to continue my learning and stay growth minded, because being growth minded is huge for me. So one goal that I have is, beyond my Bible, I want to read one book a month. It has to be at least one book a month. If I can read 2, great. I'm already halfway through a book and we're only on week 2 of January. So I'm so excited, so happy. I have actually 2 books that I'm reading, because I have one that I told myself I was going to fully read. And then my pastor ended up giving me another book. He's like, hey, we're reading this. I was like, oh, okay. So there's an extra little challenge there. So, and then another one is to study my word daily and write in my prayer journal daily. And I say study my word because there's a difference between just reading your word and studying it. Now, reading your word daily is great. I'm not saying that just simply reading it is, wrong or bad or not enough. I'm not saying that at all, but I'm at a point in my faith journey where I want to sit there and dive into it, break down the verses. I love looking at the historical context, especially if it's in the Old Testament. I love those things. And then, of course, I have my prayer time with the Lord each morning, but I want to actually sit and write in a prayer journal so that way I can have something tangible to go back on and just look at, because that's something huge that my spiritual mentor actually recommended to me and encouraged me to start doing because of the huge impact it had for her and her spiritual growth and development, but also because I want to be able to, years from now, look back at an old prayer journal and just see how the Lord answered that prayer, or if he answered it and how he answered it. So I just feel like that would be something super sweet, and again, a huge thing that my spiritual mentor recommended me to do and highly encouraged me on. Another personal goal is getting in 10K steps a day, just being highly active and prioritizing my health to an extent. Of course, it's always been a priority of mine, but I want to take it even a step further. I work out pretty much every day during the week, and I love doing weightlifting, but just challenging myself physically. So I want to try to get 10,000 steps a day. And a practical thing that I already implemented, which has made it so easy for me to already be achieving that, is I have a little walking pad underneath my standing desk, and I love it. That's all I have to say. A huge personal goal that I have is for 2025 is to get my first apartment. I want to so badly. And this has just been a goal and a dream of mine, is to finally get my own. I'm not there yet, but again, I'm just being so raw and honest with you. I just can't wait to work towards that. So then some of my other goals that I have are, I broke it down between my personal Instagram, because that's where I content create for my own personal stuff. I have some goals for my personal YouTube channel. There I have vlogs. So on my personal YouTube channel, I want to try posting 3 vlogs per week and 3 shorts per week. I would love to reach 50,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel. I've had my YouTube channel for 10 years, since I was like 14, I believe. And I have never been consistent, like super consistent with posting to it. So this is the year. I'm snapping out of that, and I'm going to be consistent in posting with it. So I also, with that, want to get to a point to where I can monetize my channel, so that way it can be a source of income for me. So that is a goal that I have there. Now, with the Heels and Hallelujahs podcast here, a goal of mine is to post minimum 1 podcast per week, and that gets published on both YouTube and Spotify. So yes, you heard it here. In case you didn't know, you can hear this podcast on both YouTube and Spotify. So that is fun. Then, so sorry, my curly hair is getting on my face. I'm kind of tickling my face. So with the Heels and Hallelujahs podcast, I do also have an Instagram for it, and that is just a very practical way to increase awareness about the podcast. And so I will be posting content there. So I would love to get the Heels and Hallelujahs Instagram page to 10,000 followers, and I want to I have a goal of posting 4 reels a week. Now, keep in mind, the amount of content of goals that I have to put out each week is a lot. So this is all me. I'm a 1-person team right now. So this means I'm going to be very intentional with my time and how I break that up each week. So yeah, then I have plenty of other goals, but those are just some that I want to share with you. A lot of these are just personal, and they're going to be just for me, but I want to share with you a couple practical ways, very easy ways, especially I feel like the ladies, the girlies out there, the H&H fam, y'all are going to love this first one, and it is to make a prayer vision board. I did one of these with my best friend, and it's something that you see, probably on Pinterest and all of that, but it makes your goals and quote unquote dreams tangible. You see it every day. It's something like, put it in a place where you're going to physically see it, to where it's a reminder on the daily. And so that way it puts that thought in your head of, what small task am I doing today that is going to get me 1 step closer to achieving that goal? And you do that each and every day. And I guarantee you, by the end of the year, you can look back and see how much closer you actually got to that goal, and it will actually put you on a pathway to achieving those goals. And not only did I make it a physical vision board, but I also made one, and I put it as a screensaver on my phone. So every time I pick up my phone, I look at my phone and I see it, and I'm like, oh goodness, okay. Am I picking up my phone to do something productive, to work toward my goal, or something that's going to grow me practically or spiritually? Or am I picking up my phone to sit here and waste some time scrolling on whatever social media? Again, it's okay to do that sometimes if you have a rest day, but it makes you be far more intentional with your time. Another thing that I want to say is, as I mentioned earlier, get so specific with each of your goals. write them out. Put a number to it if you can. Another thing is this one book that I'm actually reading. It's the one that my pastor gave me to read. It talks about, it's actually called The 12-Week Year, and it's how to do more in 12 weeks than most people would do in a whole year. I'm currently in the process of reading that, and it has the huge concept that it talks about is instead of having a 1-year mindset, have a 12-week mindset. Like totally throw out the 12-month calendar concept, because if you are trying to make set goals for each 12 weeks. So that way at the end of your first 12 weeks, you can sit and analyze, did I actually achieve that? If not, how far away am I from achieving that? And then for the next 12 weeks, you're actually able to develop a better plan to build on that goal, or how short or far you fell from reaching it. So that way you can actually be far more accurate with the growth plan to achieve those, rather than just kind of throwing the net out there and hoping you land at your goal by the end of the year. It makes you be far more intentional. And that's something that I would love to share more on as I read through that book and finish it. But again, just be so intentional. And then also, a huge thing I just want to leave you with is, one, I want to encourage you, set a big goal. But two, don't set a big goal and expect that you're going to achieve it by just continuing to do the same things each and every day. That is the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. Don't do that. If you have a big goal and you wrote it out on paper and you see that you're actually so far from that goal, ask yourself, what does my current schedule look like? What needs to change about my schedule? What needs to change about the time that I wake up each morning in order to give me the proper time each day to be more intentional on what tasks I'm doing? How am I prioritizing my tasks? What tasks am I doing that I probably don't need to be doing, that are a waste of my time? Like, just sit there and ask yourself those questions. It seems kind of monotonous. It seems kind of pointless, but you really need to be so real with yourself on those things. And that's something that I'm working on and I'm doing myself, of just being real, of like, okay, I'm spending probably too much time just sitting scrolling on my phone, which I don't need to be doing. In what ways can I streamline a process or a task that I'm doing? In what way can I make my work more mobile? So if I do need to, out of the blue, go run an errand, I can still be working from my phone, just practical things like that. But all of that to say, I hope that this episode was encouraging, and if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments. I would love to start this year doing Q&A based episodes, where I just have episodes full of doing nothing but answering your questions. So if you have any questions or topics that you would like to hear me discuss, please leave them in the comments. If you want to follow me on my personal Instagram page, is at AllannaCuellar. I have Heels and Hallelujahs is on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify. All that information is down in either the description or the bio, depending on whatever platform you're listening to. But that is going to be it for this episode. I just pray that the Lord gives you so much guidance and clarity for this year, and that he just keeps you under his wing. I just want you to know I love you and God loves you, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.